Alright, so it is a nice chilly morning. I came out here early to find ice on the boat and lots of frost. Had to make a trip over to the hardware store to buy some propane for our little heater so that the epoxy could get warmed up enough to do our project today. But I wanted to show you, this is the tank lid so far. So this is what we fiberglassed last week. Obviously there's little shards of fiberglass running around the edges here that need to be cleaned up, and then the whole thing will get pushed a little bit further in for a tighter fit. But it's looking really good, and I wonder if I can show you. It's not like super solid structure right now, but there's that baffle in there, so really you know, it's just fine. Like, you know, I think I'm not worried about this not being able to support weight, which is great. But anyhow, we are going to take this back and fiberglass the other side today, so that we'll have a nice little sandwich going on. Then it's so cold that it's going to take forever to cure, so that might be all we're going to get done today. But yeah, that's where we're at. Alright, so got our fiberglass laid out and our template, and basically we're just going to cut this and fiberglass it down on the other side of what we were working on before. Alright, so one thing that we've got going on here, this looks beautiful, except there's this little spot right here, which is maybe an inch by an inch, and for whatever reason, the fiberglass just bubbled up a little bit right there. So I want to actually sand that down before flipping this over and doing the other layer, because I'm worried that that's going to create a raised surface and mess everything up. So what I'll do is go back outside into the frigid cold and get us hooked up to power so that I can get the sander and just clean up that spot. Alright, so that was really quick. You can see this is just a very small area here. And now that we're done with that, we can flip this over and begin fiberglassing this side. You can see this is still quite bendy, and even where the fiberglass just had a natural curve to it, it kind of curved. So you know, we'll lay the fiberglass down with some thickened epoxy, and then we might even put some weights on this afterwards just to make sure it's perfectly flat. We have the cardboard underneath here, you know, to make sure that we have that nice even surface. And yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. So the first step is to mix a big batch of thickened epoxy. Epoxy is very, very difficult to work with when it's super cold. So I've had this warming up in front of this heater over here. I can feel just by the viscosity inside of here that this is ready to be used. Same thing with the hardener, which is not quite as sensitive as the resin, but the resin really congeals into too thick of a mess to really mix properly if it's too cold. So be careful when working with epoxy in the cold. You know, definitely freezing temperatures, it's not going to be good. You know, and the same thing, if it's super hot, as you know, it can cure very rapidly. So you have to be careful about that. So there's really like this ideal temperature that you want it around. I personally love it when it's around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 70 degrees, right around in there. It's really nice to work with. Once you start getting cold into the 50s, 40s, certainly 30s like it has been right now, it's not going to work. All right, so let's mix this batch up. Okay, so we've got that layer of fiberglass down. As you can see, I put a ton of thickened epoxy underneath there, and turns out it's like the perfect amount. I used a notch spreader, West System 809 notch spreader, and what that does is it allows like these little ridges of epoxy to form. And so now that epoxy is soaked through this fiberglass, and then we're going to wet out this side of it with some more epoxy, and then we'll let it cure. So this is looking really good, and we're just going to put some more epoxy down and let it cure, and then see. I want to test the rigidity. We're also going to have to cut some holes. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done before we install this, but you know, we're definitely moving in the right direction, and that feels great. Alright, so here we are. We have fiberglass that layer down, so now we have a sandwich of foam core with fiberglass on either side. And I put a batch, after we wetted it out and laid it down and all that stuff, I put a batch of thickened epoxy on the top because this fiberglass has like a really aggressive weave, and I just wanted to smooth it out a little bit. I'll sand it down and just kind of create that like finishing layer. And then I put some weights on top to make sure that as it cures completely flat. Yeah, and that's it. So it's really cold, so it's going to take a while for this to cure. So I think that's about all we've got for today.